All right. So
Okay.
being that this is our first episode, we wanted to kind of give our stories and let y'all know what brought us here, what we're all about, when people tell their stories, it gives the audience, the listener, some emotion to connect to because they can always see themselves somewhere in there. They have those thoughts, those feelings. They've been through similar situations and circumstances. So it's taken us all quite a while to get where we are. I know for sure. As a pet parent, you face more challenges with your dogs and cats today than ever before in history. What's the best food to feed? How do I prevent illness and help them live longer? Maybe you currently have a pet living with disease or behavioral issues and you need a different approach for success. Welcome to the Pet Health Junkies podcast. We're so happy you're here. Pam Roussel is a holistic health practitioner specializing in holistic health for animals. Janet Cesarini is a healthy pet store owner and advocate for health through nutrition. Jessica Fisher is a pet parent coach and positive reinforcement dog trainer. Join us as we share our stories, experiences, and all that we've learned to change the way we think about raising our pets. We're breaking it all down and making it simple by sharing how we help pet parents just like you every day. Because when we know better, we can do better. So, Janet, you want to go first? What happened? What happened to you to make you stray from the pack?
Yeah. So I was definitely anybody that knows me now, because I've always been such a rule follower. So I did kind of stray from the pack. I think I've always been an independent thinker, and always have loved research. Having, with a background in education, what I did as a teacher and a principal was research based. And so, I grew up with all kinds of animals, but only had one dog growing up. Had her for a short period of time, and before she passed away, but she followed me home from school in first grade. And her name was Kathy with a K. She was a long-haired black dachshund with some Pekingese in her, and she was just the best dog. So after that, after losing her, we didn't have another dog until my senior year at Texas A&M. And that was my introduction to Aussies and Australian Shepherds and Border Collies, and fell in love because they're wicked smart, wicked loyal. Anybody who knows dogs know how loyal they are, and how loving they are. But anybody who works with that herding breed, it's just, you're a herding breed person or you're not, I think, or the terrier breeds. And Rio was my senior year of A&M, and he opened up my world to dogs again. And fast forward many, couple of decades, my lifestyle wasn't accommodating for dogs, and I had cats until 2012. And in 2012, Hank and Charlie came into my world and the world of my husband and me. We got married in 2012 and went on our honeymoon. And I always say a week after our honeymoon, we had twins because we came home from our honeymoon and a friend of mine had a litter of Aussies, and I always said I wanted Aussies again. So we went and picked up Hank and Charlie. And as I was thinking about my origin story, about 4 to 5 years into their lives, things started to change. And I wrote notes, but I was that person. I did all the shots. I did all the vaccines. I did the vet recommended dry food. And thought I was doing everything okay. You know, I did the heartworm meds. I did the flea and tick meds because, you know, we lived in the Houston area for a little while, and then before we came back to Austin. And I thought I was doing everything okay, you know, and right. And I was doing everything that I knew to do, right? So about 4 or 5 years into it, we started to see weight gain, lethargy. We started to see the stools change. Like they always gave me this big heaping pile of poop, and I thought, yeah, that's awesome. It's a lot. Now we know different, right? And I know we'll get into that in the podcast. But we went from, I'm going to fast forward here. I'll do a little sidebar. We went from having lots of poop to having, that much, which is thumbs up, the way we want to be. That's what we want to see. Because that means that the body is using the nutrients that it's getting instead of just passing it through the body. So that's kind of just a foreshadowing of some of the things that we're going to be talking about on our podcast. But anyhow, overweight, lethargic, lots of shedding. And it was like, oh, well, they're Australian shepherds. They're a double coat. They're going to shed. And I remember from Rio, he did shed a lot. And more foreshadowing, I now know you can do something nutrition wise to help curb shedding. And so I went to the vet, and they were prescribed Apoquel, which is most commonly, most people know it's given for allergies, things related to itching, licking, the paws, scratching. And for the weight problem, they wanted me to put them on a very well-known dry kibble for weight reduction. And going back to my teaching roots, I asked the question, how does that work? What's in the prescription? What's in this food? How come it's going to work? Because, I also wanted to know why I've been doing everything you told me to do. Why are we here? Why didn't that work? I mean, my dogs weren't even seniors, right? So, and I thought, I need another decade out of these guys. And if we're going to go on to prescriptions and we're having these issues down the road, what is that? What is it going to be like? Because, you look at humans.
Such an important question. I feel like every pet parent should be asking themselves, I've been doing everything you've been telling me to do. Why are we here? If everybody stopped and asked that question, I mean, how many pets' lives would change just because people stop and ask that question?
I'm glad you picked up on that, because it hasn't been easy in the respect for me, because I've always been an inquisitive person, child, student, daughter, sister, and many more times than not, even friends, when you're asking questions that has a negative connotation to it. So I even think in our podcast, we're going to get into some humanity of things and also some empowerment.
I totally agree, because especially as women, we're really taught, like, we really are looked at. If we ask a question, how dare you? Right? Yeah. Like, especially as women, we get that. Yes. So, like, I don't think men get that in the way that women get that. So that's for sure something we should talk about. Yeah.
Not to the degree. Yes. Yeah. So that was my question. I've never been one to just say, for you to tell me something and me go, okay, because I want to take that in, and how does that sit with me? How does that fit my belief system? And how does that affect not only me, but in this case, Hank and Charlie? the loves of my lives. I mean, I don't have children, for anybody who's wondering. I have 5 fur babies and they are my world, and my husband's. We live for them, and we want to give them the best life ever. So we thought we were doing that, and then we ended up with problems, and I had the carpet pulled out from underneath my feet, and I felt like I failed them immediately because, again, I said, how does that work? Why are we here? And that day was the shift for me, as far as being on the precipice or the cusp of a paradigm shift, which again is why we're here. We're seeing a lot of that in the relationship between pet parents and pets, is a shift, but because we're seeing that in the human, side of things as well, as we're seeing a paradigm shift about, hey, I need to take back my power, take back my health. What y'all have been, giving me and telling me to do is not working. Why are we here? So I told my vet, let me go home and research that, and I'll get back to you. And I encourage pet parents and just people to say, do your research. And I remember, Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib and, a friend of mine, Terry Swanson, up here in Salado, that does all things, all creatures hyperbaric oxygen, therapy. She said, do your research. And all of them are right. And so I did that. And I'm going to tell you that I cried when I read the ingredients in the food. And look, I'm going to cry now.
No, it is.
It was very emotional.
I really want to acknowledge your bravery in that moment, talking to your veterinarian, because it's so sad to say that that's brave. That's a normal, rational conversation. But in the society we live in today, and the relationship that most pet parents have with their veterinarian, it's considered brave to talk to your veterinarian in a way that makes you their equal. Yes, they have a degree that we don't have, but that doesn't mean that we don't have knowledge that they don't have. And to just say, thank you for that information, I'm going to take that and do my research and follow up with you. That was so brave of you. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And that was the beginning of the change. Because I researched every single ingredient, and I went online. I looked up the Apoquel. I read the myriad side effects. And Hank is over here off screen. And that's why I got so emotional, because, Hank loves his din-dins. And the food that they wanted to give him had a lot of fillers in it. One very common one that just sends me through the roof in pet food is powdered cellulose, which is tree bark pulp. It's absorbent. It's filler, right? It's no nutrient value. I mean, it has fiber in it, keeps things moving, but what a dog needs is animal protein. It's protein, but it's animal protein. They need macronutrients, they need micronutrients. And so I looked at Hank, and that was another question I had for my vet. I said, how does that work? He said, well, it'll make him feel full. And I keyed in on that word feel. I'm like, is it going to feed him what he needs and fill him with nutrition, or just make him feel full? Because I can drink water all day long, but I'm not getting the nutrients that I need, but I'll feel full. So that I was an advocate for Hank and Charlie. And that was, again, like I said, my paradigm shift. And I just started to ask questions in the universe, and start researching. And here, like with anything, if you seek answers, you will find answers. And that I became a seeker. I became a truth seeker. Always had been in other areas of my life, but not with pets because, I had not had a need. And so, that is where the story really, began. And then the world of what I do now, opened up. And so, I walked into my first independent pet store and I heard about raw food for the first time. And I thought they were crazy. Feed my pet raw meat. They're going to get sick. They're going to get salmonella. That's another topic, that we can talk about. We know now, dogs are, a healthy gut biome. A healthy dog is not going to react like humans do to salmonella, E. coli, listeria. Not that they can't get sick, especially if you have a compromised dog and if you have compromised meat. But, the inspection process for raw food is much more stringent than it is in the pet world than it is in the human world. And it's the concern over E. coli, listeria, and salmonella really is about the human handling of it. There's a liability there, right? And from the FDA. So, anyhow, I heard about raw food. I heard another product about cleaning up the gut and what it means to have a healthy gut. And started down the path of changing supplements, nutrition. And it was amazing to see the transformation. My overweight dogs lost 10 pounds just because I cleaned up the gut and cleaned up the diet. They're like puppies again. They're almost 11 now. And they're so active. Sometimes they drive me crazy. But, I got my dogs back. That was, and I hear people say that in our stores, like, thank you for giving me my dog back. They're like puppies again. And that's Hank and Charlie at almost 11 years old. And so this was 6 years ago. And so, healthy gut, we have healthy poops now that almost disintegrate. If I leave them out there 2 days, they're gone because nothing's left but, the ash. And they've absorbed all the nutrients. And by absorbing all the nutrients, it feeds the immune system. So do we have need for Apoquel, like itching, paw licking, all that? No. Did I ever put them on Apoquel?
Good for you.
No. Never did.
Yeah.
Did I do that food? God, no. I did not. I just started reading, learning, changing their nutrition. I was seeking out literally the independent pet stores that I went to because I did the big box stores too. And, looking back now, I feel like I wasted a few years because I now know, because owning a pet store, I can see behind the scenes. And I now know that, well, they had their quotas to make and they had to push this week and this that week. And so depending upon when I went in, it was like, oh, this is the greatest food or this is the greatest food. No, yeah, kibble will get tartar off of the teeth. No, it doesn't. It puts tartar on the teeth. It's carbohydrates. It's like if you eat a bag of potato chips, you're going to have film on your teeth. So it just is interesting to see the transformation and the journey. And I'm so glad to be here so that we ladies can just share our experience and hopefully in not an intimidating way, but in an encouraging, empowering
and you,
way. So
in a nutshell, but now
that's it in
today,
a nutshell.
You have your own independent pet store, right? Pupology in Georgetown, Texas.
Yes.
And you get to help people that were like you.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I am blessed to during that journey. I always knew, even as a small child, I wanted my own business. I thought it would be in like gifts and pretty things, which that has its purpose in the world. We should be surrounded by beautiful things, living and non-living. But it came to me one day, it was another aha moment. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want a store that caters to pet parents, that are on a mission to improve the lives of their pets. And so every day, I work with a wonderful team who I have taught, who are hungry for knowledge, who are, continuously learning about, the ever evolving, ever changing, pet industry and nutrition and the world of supplements and just best practices for our pets. And that in itself is a journey, because we sometimes we want to download all this information and it can be overwhelming. We recognize that sometimes people walk in on a recommendation of people who we've helped in the past or are currently working with, and our customers are wonderful, for referring us. And we ask, do you want the Band-Aid or do you want us to go to the source? Because if we're going to go to the source, it's going to be a minute and we're going to tell you things that are going to make your mind go, oh, but we make connections. And so, I opened the store, actually left corporate America in 2016, July of 2016, and just stepped out in faith, believing what was in my gut, which is, this is my purpose. This is what I've been working on for 30 years, and I started as a pop-up. So I would go around to different market days. I would go around to fairs and, events, local events, in the greater Austin area, 2 to 3 weekends a month. And I was listening to people. I was teaching them what I knew about, hey, let's start with better treats, literally treats, single source ingredient treats, clean sourced treats, not full of carbohydrates, not full of fillers, real food, not all these chemical names. And better toys made in the USA. Is it okay to have a rawhide? No, it's not. They're not digestible. They have formaldehyde in them. They've got bleach in them. And so because we see it everywhere, and as pet parents, we're so heavily marketed to, we don't know better, but we're here. I wanted that store, and for 3 years as a pop-up, and now 3 years, this was our anniversary month this month, 3 years in brick and mortar. We're like, if we know better, we do better. And so that's the mission of Pupology. And 3 years into the pop-up, a cute little house on Williams Drive here in Georgetown opened up. And again, another leap of faith. We had 700 square feet, maybe, and I opened without food. I didn't have food until September of that year. I learned just so much every single day, and just was so hungry for knowledge. And during those 3 years as a pop-up, I had continued my research and learning, and that continued when I opened brick and mortar. And then we moved a year ago into 1,300 square feet. So almost doubled our space. And we continue to grow, and I feel very blessed and very fortunate to have the opportunity to do.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And I know I send everybody I can there.
Me too.
And I am so appreciative of both of you.
Oh.
Yes.
We reach more people.
And it's so important to support each other too.
And help more pets.
It's
absolutely.
And not just supporting each other, but supporting the mission, and educating
that's it
other people so they can learn and do better for their pets too, because we all started there.
Yeah. I feel like everybody in the healthy pet space, like we all need to support each other, because our overall mission is the same. So yes. Pam from Perfectly Holistic.
Oh,
Perfectly Holistic.
Yeah, I'm representing the cat here.
Tell me how
Cat get over
what made you decide to say screw everybody else in the world, they're wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, my journey started with me back in 2004. I think it was 2004. And I was working in the fitness industry at the time. I had developed a foot injury, and it was the bottom of my foot, and a bone was basically so inflamed that it was dying. Um, and so the podiatrist that I was going to at the time put me in one of those boots. And I'm sure I had like 2 or 3 steroid shots or whatever, cortisone shots to try to really, reduce the inflammation. I was in that boot for a very long time, months. It was not getting better. And I was on a vacation in Vancouver, and we were driving through Chinatown and just looking at the markets. There's outdoor stuff and signs everywhere. And it was kind of signs in Chinese and signs in English. And I just had an epiphany moment right there in the car driving through this town. And I thought, you know what? Here I am on a vacation wearing a damn boot. When I get home back to Houston, I'm going to go find me a Chinese doctor. I've got to what I'm doing is not working, and I need to get out of that paradigm that I was in. This conventional model wasn't working for me. So that's what I did. When I got home, I got on the internet and I looked up Chinese medicine, doctors, acupuncture. And I want people to know that I am needle phobic. I run out of the room if there is an SHOT. Okay. So I dragged my husband at the time with me to this first appointment because, hello, I am terrified. Right. And so I end up at this wonderful little Chinese lady's doctor's office. She's from China. She's an MD. I can barely understand her. And I knew I was in the right place, because she has been practicing this medicine for years. And if Chinese medicine didn't work, they wouldn't be still doing it for thousands of years, right? So long story short, she healed my foot in 8 weeks. No boot, nothing, herbs, acupuncture, done, 8 weeks. And then I remember that last appointment at that time, she said, you don't need to come back. And I was just so shocked by a doctor telling me, don't come back, because you never hear that. You never hear that in the conventional world. It rocked me. I was like, wow, what kind of a doctor says that? A healing doctor.
A healing doctor.
Someone who's honest, that really wants their patients to get better. I don't want to see you again. You don't need me anymore. And I thought that was so
right.
I thought that was profound and quite a dichotomy of what we see in traditional medicine these days. So that started me on a journey of just, what else do I not know that I obviously need to learn? And so I started reading books. I discovered Dr. Mercola. I discovered Karen Becker. I started reading books about, following the money. Where's the, why we have the industries that we do today, and just look at how corrupt they are. And it was based on, their practices and the greed and the money and the control and all of that corporate corruption. And it was just really eye-opening to me. And being in the fitness and health profession, I felt like my industry had done me a disservice. And I was kind of upset at first when I was learning all this information about natural health, and we don't need medicines. Yes, there's a time and place for certain things, but for general aches and pains, there are so many natural remedies out there. There's so many natural options for health. There's so many ways we can do better nutritionally. And I didn't know that, and I'm in the health industry. So that was quite a shocker for me, that I had to get past that shock and kind of disappointment and go, you know what, I'm going to do better. And so that's where the path started to divide. I took the less traveled road, and I started to make it my mission to learn. And it was like this hunger and this passion that was driving me. And a few short years later, one of my cats started to develop feline acne on her chin. And I had never seen feline acne before. So I took her to a vet, And this one vet said, oh, we'll just, we'll just probably just bacteria. We'll just scrape it off of her. And I remember watching the vet techs and this vet like forcibly scrape, this stuff off of her chin. And she was just not having it. Like, this feels very wrong to me. And it didn't, she's like, change your bowls, whatever. It came back, of course. And so I looked up and found an integrative vet that was kind of far, but I'm like, I'm just going to go. We went to her and she's like, it's probably food sensitivity or sometime, but we think you should go to see this veterinary dermatologist. Well, okay. I'm still on this journey of learning everything. So I go to the veterinary dermatologist and she says, yeah, it's probably food allergy, but we would need to do the testing. And I'm like, well, how do you do the testing? With all the needles on the skin, I'm like, oh, no. You're not putting my cat through that. Concurrently at the same time, one of my coworkers at the time, Mary, love her to death, she's a very dear friend of mine, was going to a naturopath clinic. It turns out it was very, very close to my house. And she was telling me about her visits to this naturopath clinic that she had been going to for her health issues and stuff at the time. And she told me at work one day, I was over at Heights of Health yesterday and someone had their cat. And I was like, cat? Cat? I said, the cat? And it always stuck with me. And so instead of following the veterinary, advice of, take this very expensive prescription food, and by the way, it was dry, and do allergy testing, I said, you know what? I'm going to take my cat to the naturopath clinic because obviously they're doing something over there that I feel like I need to know about. So I went to her, and in one 30-minute session with the gal, I found out what she was sensitive to, what was causing the problems. She did energy clearing, healing work, and cleared stressors. She did muscle testing. And I'm the surrogate she's using to do all this stuff. And I'm having my mind blown. I'm like, what? And she says, just give her about, 24 hours or so. And then you can start feeding the chicken. I think it was chicken, of course, that she was sensitive to. And I'll tell you, from that day forward, Lily never had another skin breakout again. And she was eating chicken again. She was eating a variety of different things. But that was so pivotal in my awakening process that I was like, what? This is incredible. I need to learn more about this. So I learned how to do muscle testing when this clinic offered a workshop one weekend. And my friend Mary and I were like, we are going to go because we want to figure out how they do this stuff, And it was so fascinating to me. That was the day that the light bulb really went off in my head. And I'm like, oh, this is game changer. This is every pet parent needs this. So I made it my mission to master all of those techniques and practice. I practiced on people at work. I practiced on pets. I practiced on myself and, whatever, every opportunity that I could, I was testing and practicing and learning all this stuff. Fast forward to 2014, we were planning on going on a vacation and having 6 cats. We weren't going to take all 6 with us on this 2-day road trip. We were going to board 2, the older 2, and take the younger 4. And the local cat boarding only facility required updated vaccines. Well, I stopped doing the yearly vaccines when I had my epiphany moment with the Chinese medicine experience not too long after that. I'm like, I don't need to be taking them every year for these things. And there's no need. That was like one of those aha moments. Like, I don't go get vaccinated every year. Why am I doing that to them? And I stopped. Right. So, but until then, I was that dutiful pet parent every year, get the little card. Oh, I guess it's time. Yeah. Let's go. Load everybody up. What a drama. I mean, that was just stress on everybody. So I I was under a deadline. I had to turn in my updated papers for the two cats. And it was dragging my feet, because something inside of me said, this just isn't right. And I felt like my hands were tied. And so we took them over and we got them updated on their vaccines. And the doctors were just, just doing their thing. They're like, okay, well, how are they feeling? Are they kind of sick or anything? No, but I didn't know to tell them certain things because they didn't ask me the right questions. If I had known what you really wanted to know, I would have been more specific and given you some more background on Snow Bear. 7 days later, he died from an adverse reaction to those vaccines. And I think it was more the rabies vaccine. But within 24 hours, he was having major swelling and having just major issues. So fast forward, 7 days later from that shot, he passed away at 4:00 in the morning in front of me on the floor. And it shattered me, obviously, because I felt responsible because I had made that decision.
Yes.
With my hand, feeling like my hands were tied and I didn't have a choice, right? Even though it was, there's no scientific basis for having to keep doing that and proving to people, hey, my cat's healthy. He had underlying health issues that he should not have been vaccinated. He should not have been vaccinated.
How old was Snow Bear?
12. He was 12.
Yeah.
He was an indoor cat. Yeah.
Was he a raw-fed cat at that time?
He was not at that
Not then? But he was an indoor cat and all intents and purposes should have been healthy.
He had some feline herpes. We don't really know how he had contracted that unless it was something he had picked up as a kitten in the cattery. It's possible. And then he also had some feline bronchitis. And I had been to a couple different vets about his cough. And they showed me pictures. They took x-rays and put them up on the wall and were showing me, his lungs and everything. And I said, well, how do you cure that? He goes, well, there's no cure. And I immediately in my head, it's like, oh, yes, there is. You just don't know it. Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
You just don't know it.
Yes.
And so I went home.
Right. Maybe not conventionally.
Correct. Not in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Conventional medicine, no cure.
But I had been working with some herbals and just little stuff that I had been finding and ways to kind of try to help him. And that was the day I came home and I took away the dry food. I stopped cold turkey. I'm like, you know what? And he'd been to the naturopath too a couple times. So this has been a process for him. But one of the things I immediately did was took him off the dry food. And can I tell you, within 2 days, that cough improved by 95%. 95%. Yeah. He stopped coughing. It was incredible. So, those were just one of those little lessons I kind of learned along the way when I was learning about holistic approaches for health with cats. My cats gave me a lot of learning opportunities, and I'm grateful to that. But his death being so raw and so sudden and so much guilt around that for me, it was devastating. And I remember sitting in my best friend's, my coworker's, Mary's office at work, and we were sobbing about the whole thing one day. And I just looked at her and I said, it's just not right. Someone needs to open up a boarding facility that doesn't require vaccines for cats. And I had been looking for business opportunities because I was feeling very restless and dissatisfied in my career. And hearing that out loud, I stopped myself and looked at her and I said, I need to open up a boarding facility that doesn't require vaccines for cats. And that was just like a seed in my mind that was planted. And so I went on that vacation that we had planned. We did not board the other cat. We took them all with us on this road trip, and we did great. And I took a journal, and I spent that trip brainstorming about what kind of business I would have, and just kind of putting that vision and what it would entail, what it look like, and all of that. And so that was kind of like the beginning of starting my company. And then 8 months later, it was August of 2016, was it 15? I think it was 2015. I actually filed for my DBA and started Perfectly Holistic. And so,
that's what I did.
And then I launched my website. Yep. My wonderful cousin owns a web development company, and he helped me, came into town with his teammates, and we designed the website. He put it together, he built it, he launched it. And then I opened my online e-commerce store 3 months later. And that was the beginning. And I was blogging, and I was educating, and I just had a lot of content that I spent because I was working full time. So I was trying to figure out how to balance everything with what I knew I was meant to be doing. And the growth and responsibility kept increasing more and more and more and more, and more opportunities. And I call it learning curves. It's just, you don't know what you don't know when you're starting a business. Right. And at the same time, and continuing to learn to be this health coach for cat people to do better for their cats. And so I worked my tail off for over 6 years doing full-time work and running a business at the same time. So blessed that I was able to finally resign that full-time career at the very beginning of this year. And I moved to Georgetown the next week. And I am working full-time now on Perfectly Holistic, which is a dream. And I get to help cats, and I get to help cat people learn and do better for their cats, and all the holistic approaches that I have learned over the years from my own cats being my own best teachers, and from other cats that I've worked on, and just learning new modalities and taking all of my knowledge from sales and marketing and holistic health and put it all together in a platform. It's been quite the journey, but I wouldn't want to do anything else.
That's so awesome. Yeah.
That's my story.
And there were so many nuggets in there, and I know for sure we'll be talking more about jabs and But I had a thought when you were talking about it that I think we would be hard pressed to find many animals at all in the United States that are healthy enough to actually qualify for a vaccine. Because they live in a state of disease all the time like we do anymore, just because of how we live. And our environment and our food. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
But there are things that we can do, which is, why we're all here, to start to, try and reverse it and cleanse and, get back to a degree
real
of
health.
Healthiness.
See what real health
real health.
Vibrant health.
Whole health.
We want to be vibrant. Healthy. Not just survive.
We do. Yeah, I think that you touched on, Pam, about how we both, and I know, Jessica, you're going to share your story here in just a few seconds, but we both had those personal experiences that changed our worlds, made us, think differently and change the paradigm and start asking questions and becoming a seeker of information or knowledge. Because going back to it again, you're going to hear us say this a lot, is when we know better, we do better. If you know different, you hopefully do different. No, and that goes along with anything in life. Right? You can apply that to anything in life. Relationships, your personal relationship with yourself, your, relationships with significant others, with work, your pets, your eating habits, your exercise habits. I mean, your thinking process, all of that. So I'm excited to be partnering with you three ladies. And I find it not coincidental that we all are in it. We ended up in Georgetown together. Yeah. And I was going to say, and just like I met you, Jessica, through Pam. I met Pam at Super Zoo, the largest pet retail conference that happens every year in Vegas, and we were the two nerdy girls on the front row, and we were listening to a presenter. And we each kind of held back after the seminar because we had additional questions. And we just, that's how we met, across the aisle, and found out that, she was in Houston, which I grew up about an hour south of Houston. And we ended up having a mutual friend from my hometown whom she had, had met from her work at the spa fitness, the club. And so we started attending Super Zoo together every year. So, I mean, this will be year number, is it 7? 5? Well, the pandemic, took out a couple, but that was 2016. So this would be year 6.
Have been 2017. I think it was 2017.
Okay. Yes, you're right. Because I went by myself 2016. I mean, I left corporate America on like July 16th, 2019. And within 6 weeks, I had my first pop-up. And I look back on it now, I'm like, I have no idea how in the hell I did that. But I learned, I went online, and all of a sudden this thing called Super Zoo pops up. And I look at it, and I told my husband, I said, I think I'm going to go to this because I can learn so much. There's educational seminars. There's the trade show floor where you get to be up close and personal with the pet food brands, the pet manufacturers of toys, and all things pets. And so I went with an open mind and an open heart, and my world just opened up, and it was just so exciting. And then, the next year, Pam and I met. And so every year we were like, hey, let's just meet up and go together. And then, here you are, 2022, here in Georgetown.
And then Jessica, and it's so nice to have a buddy that's in the industry.
I know.
That we can bounce ideas off of and collaborate and grow with and learn with. It's so powerful. I get goosebumps. And then Jessica cool. I met because she was a client. And then she told me, she tells me, we're moving from California to Georgetown. I'm like, you're going to Georgetown? Really? What a small world. She beat me here, but by about 6 months. But isn't that funny? Of all
the places,
it's crazy to
go. And now here we are putting our knuckleheads together.
It's true.
But I like it because, I'm traditional now, brick and mortar, retail, and, we have the online store, but we're nutrition, based and holistic based, and then, focusing on dogs, but we also do cat nutrition, and, then you're so focused on cats, but you also touch the lives of dogs and people, and you're in your holistic healing realm, and with the energy and the muscle testing, and, you have that background in addition to nutrition. And then Jessica, I think it's cool because you come in with the pet parenting reset, and you're talking about positive training. And a lot of the work you do, like the two of us, is really changing the mindset of pet parents. And, you are, and I've seen you recently, really putting yourself out there with some things that, have, I don't want to say they're controversial, but they are outside the box of traditional. Yes, thinking. Thank you. And we all, are thinking outside the box, and you've had some, people in the industry raise questions, and, we say good for you, and we're here cheering you on and joining you so that you are making the information available like we all are, so that people know they have a choice. And as you mentioned earlier, when I was asking questions so bravely to my veterinarian, and I'm fortunate now because I have a veterinarian who's integrative, and she welcomes my questions. And I take my bag of supplements in and go, here, what do you think about these? And she gives me the thumbs up, and I'm like, thankfully, I mean, it's just kind of solidifies what I've been learning all these years. And that learning doesn't stop. I mean, y'all know I sent a webinar to you on Sunday. So on Sunday, you and I, we met 4 hours on our Sunday because we love what we do and we know we're making a difference, but we're always learning. And so with your Pet Parenting Reset, I love the name in your podcast, because you are, opening up, hopefully, people's minds to, let's approach this pet parenting from a different perspective. And so tell us how you got.
My story is actually quite
tell us your story
to many other people. And in hindsight, I have so many cringeworthy moments because there were very clear indications many times along the road that I should have been looking for alternative health methods, and I just didn't know better. I was that person, just like both of you, who I was at my veterinarian's office all the time with the number of animals I had, and I did everything that I was quote unquote supposed to, and everybody got all of their shots every single year. And I was in Virginia, and it's a big thing there that we deworm our animals like every 6 months. Like it's a thing. Like there are so many things. And I was even that person that my veterinarian had, Royal Canin would come in. That's what she sold. And they would have representatives come in on the weekends. So the office would open on the weekends to hold, educational seminars for, 2 or 3 hours on a Sunday, educating pet parents as to why we should be choosing Royal Canin over any other. And I was there in the front row every single time, like learning, thinking that I was doing, the absolute best for my pets. And then of course, all of my cats were on different formulas of Royal Canin and, all the things. And, meanwhile, like all this time, I had a cat who had a vaccine reaction. And fortunately, my vet did tell me, okay, well, she had a reaction to the rabies vaccine, so we're never going to give this to her again. But I didn't understand why. I didn't understand anything more about it other than, okay, we're never giving her a rabies vaccine again. And kind of fast forward, I met my husband who had a dog, or my now husband. And right when I moved in with him, I decided I wanted my own dog. I adopted another dog, so we had 2. And she was a hot mess. She was confiscated from a hoarder who was hoarding animals as well, and basically put into another hoarding situation with a foster who had about 40 dogs in her home, who were not getting medical care or anything. So when I adopted her, I immediately had to take her to the vet. She had teeth rotting out of her mouth. She had a mammary tumor that we had removed, all the things. And come to find out, she was also, at the time, partially blind. They think because she was kicked. And she had seizures. Well, being, the good, animal person I was, we were always at the vet, and she was on seizure medication and yada, yada. One day I just decided I was going to cook for them. for my dogs. And it wasn't anything good or balanced. Looking back, of course, I'm cringing again. And it was just like chicken and rice and vegetables. But they loved it. And I did know enough that I only supplemented with that because something in my head said they need more nutrients than this. So I didn't stop the kibble that they were eating. Right. And over time, of course, I've moved and new veterinarians, and a veterinarian said, well, I guess you could add tomatoes to it. That would make it more balanced. I'm like, okay. Yeah, because we all.
Oh my gosh, I guess
know the amount of nutritional information and education our veterinarians have. He was like, "Yeah, it's good. I guess you could add some tomatoes." So I started adding tomatoes. But what I noticed was even with adding the fresh foods to the kibble, my dog who was having seizures wasn't having seizures.
Yeah,
and it took me a little while, probably a couple of months, and
Wow.
At the time, they were eating just.
And what food was your dog on?
And I was adding in this mixture that I would make of rice and chicken and peas and carrots. And then for a very short period of time, I added in tomatoes until I was like, I don't think they should be eating tomatoes. But that's really when my vet told me that. At the vet I had at the time to add tomatoes, that's really what jump started I need to learn more about nutrition because my vet isn't even able to tell me what I should be doing. So that's when I really started looking more into nutrition. But I also, around that time, looked at my husband and I said, when was the last time Claire had a seizure? And her seizures were bad. She was a little Pomeranian. I say they were bad. They weren't so bad that when she would have one, she snapped out of it pretty quickly. Like she came back to herself pretty darn quickly, but they scared the crap out of her. And the really bad ones, she literally did backflips. And it was just terrifying. Because she was scared to death when she came out of them. She didn't understand them.
Bless her heart.
And it really freaked me out. But I noticed with just adding in the fresh foods that I was like, it's been months and Claire hasn't had a seizure. And so I started learning more about nutrition for dogs. And I started looking for recipes to make food, which is when I found Dr. Judy Morgan. And I started making the pup loaf for them, which they absolutely loved.
Yep.
And I was also doing something similar for my cats, but I was still giving them kibble. Because I just was like, if I'm learning this about dogs and I'm learning that I don't know this much about dogs, I know I don't know what I'm doing with my cats. So I was giving them a similar, they were getting meat and vegetables in addition to their kibble. But I really woke up first with my dogs, especially with Claire and her seizures. So I'm like, I've got to learn more about this. And I just kept learning. I kept learning and I kept learning. And then I came across Kimberly Gauthier with Keep the Tail Wagging. I actually think I found her before I found Dr. Becker and I found Rodney Habib. So finding her, I found Darwin's and I said, this is what we're doing. And I started ordering Darwin's and my dogs were, Claire went over a year without a seizure after I started her on Darwin's. So I knew, knew I was doing the right thing. Once I started Darwin's, I got them off of kibble. They were not eating kibble anymore. I had a bag in the closet for emergencies, and that was it. If we had to evacuate for an earthquake or something, because I have to be prepared for everything. But my cats were still eating a lot of processed foods, a lot of kibble. And it wasn't until my cat, King Tut, had a really horrible ear infection that we could not get cleared up. And my vet put Revolution on him. And my cats hadn't had Revolution for they had it when they were indoor-outdoor cats. So it had probably been around 4 or 5 years. They hadn't had any topical flea and tick because they were all indoors. And he got a chemical burn on his back from the Revolution. And I called my vet. This is the same one who told me to add tomatoes. And I said, he has a chemical burn from this. What, he said, well, you've got one more dose to give him in a couple of weeks. I said, you're out of your damn mind. You're telling me that this product burned my cat and you want me to put another dose on him. And he was like, well, you don't have to if you don't want to. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to.
You're fired.
And that's really when it escalated out of nutrition for me. Like, there is a world outside of just feeding real foods to my pets that I got into. And I was very big into helping shelters and rescues. I did a lot of like donation drives. And some random person on YouTube, because I had a YouTube channel already by then, some random person on YouTube said to me, is that really the best way to help? And for whatever reason, that comment got me. And I was like, is it the best way to help? So I said to myself, what can I do to keep dogs out of the shelters? And that's when I decided I was going to learn how to be a dog trainer. So it kind of all came full circle with me. I was doing nutrition first and then realized there's more to it, and then decided to become a dog trainer. And that's why I really, when people contact me because they have problem behaviors with their dogs, I'm very upfront with them about, I can help you with these problem behaviors. I'm happy to schedule with you, but I want you to understand, I work with the whole dog. We're going to talk about everything. We're going to talk about the food you're feeding. We're going to talk about the vaccines that your dog is getting. We're going to talk about environmental toxins in your home. We're going to talk about it all. And most people are very, very receptive to that, which I'm very thankful for. But I think people... Exactly.
You're doing whole dog training. The whole dog, because you obviously, know about the connection between the health of the gut, which is completely susceptible to all the things you just said, the flea tick medicine, the vaccines you've talked about, the food, and it is a disruptor. And then that connection between the gut and the brain. So if you're trying to train, you have to have a healthy brain, which you've got to go to the gut. There's so much research and more coming out about the gut brain connection. And so that's what makes you really different, because I come across a lot of trainers, and again, I have questions. Those are not always met with, reception, right? Because I know what I know. And when I'm making a recommendation, I want to be 100% confident, or 99.9% confident that everybody's on the same page, or that I set that expectation to say, okay, if you're going to call Jessica, then you need to know that she's going to talk to you about the whole pet, because, it's just like with us. I mean, we know if we take a test, we're better if we're rested. If we're going to be alert while we're going throughout our day or driving, water's better than sugary drinks, and a healthy meal is better than McDonald's French fries. And all that has an effect on our thinking and our level of alertness and our ability to just function. So it's no different for pets.
Yes,
I'm so glad that your journey led you to that whole pet.
I can't tell you how many dogs, their quote unquote behavioral problems have completely stopped from switching off of a kibble into a fresh food diet.
Yeah.
I mean,
yes.
Sometimes
I'm convinced it's all the chemical additives that they put in the food. They're toxic. They're toxic.
That, and gluten, soys, all the genetically modified ingredients to try to keep up with the food chain. our bodies and pets' bodies don't know what to do with soy. It's foreign. But being genetically modified on top of it, it's just, it's just like corn, one of the most genetically modified crops, and it's feed. It's what we use to fatten
which is a shame
livestock
because
so that they
now
grow
we're
bigger,
not
so that
getting
they can
healthy
feed
animals
more
to
people.
eat.
And yeah,
No,
no, we're not. We're not.
I love your story.
So, I always say, go buy that 40-pound bag of Kirkland's food for $50.
Yeah.
You're going to spend a whole lot of money on vet bills. I had somebody that came into the store the other day and was talking to a new customer, and they were looking at our freeze-dried raw and our gently cooked raw, and they ended up talking to each other. And I always love that in the store. And one of the ladies who was a fairly recent, customer, she's been with us for 6 or 9 months, and she told the new customer, she goes, yeah, it's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
She goes, but I haven't been in the vet's office in months. And all of us here started out by saying our pets started having issues and we had to go for medical help. And all of us here have said, just, I put 2 and 2 together, or this moment brought me to, oh my gosh, what if, or, we all questioned it and then went to seek information. So I think, that's the people that come to each of us. And those are the people too, that are going to, really enjoy the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're hungry for knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe that the universal timing is awesome. And you're not listening to this podcast by accident.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as accidents. It's divine timing.
And I'm so glad that while there are some similarities, we do each have different stories, because I'm sure whoever is listening right now can hear themselves in one of us and relate. I think that is so key to connecting with whoever you're getting information from. It's just one of the things, like you can hear the same message from 2 different people, but you're going to resonate with one of them more than the other, right? And so hopefully, as you're listening, you're resonating with one or all of us.
Absolutely.
Oh goodness!
That would be great.
Those are our stories, and
Awesome.
as I said, I'm sure you're hearing yourself in at least one of our stories, because whether you started with your own health journey or your pet's health journey, you're realizing that there's so much more out there to learn. And the more you learn, the better you can do for your pets. So I don't know how often are we going to do that? I have no idea how often we're going to do this, but we will be back. So make sure you give this podcast a follow and reach out to any one of us. How can people find us? On social websites? Tell me.
Dana.
Well, Pupology is on Instagram, pupology.atx for Austin, Texas. We're also on Facebook with simply just Pupology. And online it's shoppupology.com. I will say that is a website that does not have shipping. We are very hyper local. I'm big about, loving local and really catering to my community, and to my neighbors. And, just, we do delivery within, 10 to 15 mile radius of the store. It's free over $50, but our big draw is, coming into the store. We are a destination, and, we're told time and time again, and something that I'm very proud of and very happy about, is that we're not like other pet stores.
My husband always says, "Why don't you just get it delivered?" And I'm like, "But I want to go in the store."
Your husband said that. Because, you know, that's part of the experience. I mean, you can go to a warehouse, you can go to a big box, you can go to a cookie cutter place, and you can spend a lot of money on pet products. Or you can come to, you know, our little 1950s cottage, and have a unique experience from the moment you drive up to the minute you walk in. We're happy that you're there. That's another part of my origin story is I became so disenchanted with walking into big corporate stores, and number one, not being greeted. Number two, I often wouldn't even see an associate, but I'm just shocked at it's just rude. The lack of customer service. I was trying to get there's these awesome cactus tortillas that I had found at my local grocery store. And I went to try to find them, and I had my buggy. There were 3 people trying to stock the bread aisle, and I was in their way. They were not slowing down. They were for me to do my shopping or offering to help me. They were sitting there just, you know, huffing and puffing and changing their, you know, weight on each knee, because I was in the way of where they needed to stock. And I'm really just sick and tired of that, because you have a choice. We all have a choice about where we shop, where we spend our hard earned money. And so my team and we're happy that you walk through that door. We're ecstatic that you walk through that door. We want to help you, that we exist for that purpose. So I wish I could say, go to my website, and, you know, you can go to my website and do the research and, you know, see what good, you know, healthy products we have, and then go to your local independent pet store if you have one. You know, I mean,
Support them.
The money that we give back, yes, well, that supports your local neighbors, right? And putting food on their tables, and they're helping to put healthy food on your pets, you know, in your pets' bowls. But, you know, we give back to our community. I'm not so sure that our biggest online retailer gives back to my community. Pretty sure they don't. They might send you flowers when your pet passes away, because they've got lots of money to do that.
It has the same name as them. Yeah.
Or donate to their own charity. Yeah. I mean, you know, they do. Yeah. So you know, that's another part of this podcast. I am super, you know, love your local stores. And there are a lot of them around the Austin area that are, you know, local stores. Not a whole lot that have knowledgeable staff to help you with various things. There are some.
I know, that's okay.
But sorry for, you know, getting on my soapbox, but Instagram, and we also have a new TikTok.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I get better at that.
Awesome.
And it's Pupology, Pupology.
Well, you can find us at perfectlyholistic.com. That's PURR perfectlyholistic.com. And then shop.perfectlyholistic.com is the online e-commerce store for cats. And we also have amazing services on there for both pets and people that are done remotely. So you can live anywhere in the world and take advantage of those services. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. We have a YouTube channel. It's all Perfectly Holistic. So check us out. And my email is pam@perfectlyholistic.com if you want to reach out personally and ask me any questions.
Absolutely.
Happy to help.
And mine is the Pet Parenting Reset. So you can find me YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. My Instagram is my name, though. It's Jessica Lynn Fisher. But more importantly, any information that we just gave you will be on the website, pethealthjunkies.com. So you don't have to remember anything but pethealthjunkies.com. And you can find all of us.
That's true. Give your pets some extra love from all of us.
And when you know better, you can do better.
So that's what we're here. Yeah, we're here to help you know better so that you can
Glad y'all are here.
do better. So we'll talk to you next time, guys. Bye.